All right, boys, this is the Pick Six Podcast, and this is Sunday Night Super Friends. That's Will Brinson. That's Johnny Breech. I'm Ryan Wilson. And this is the Sunday Night Super Friends Week 5 NFL Recap 2023 edition. All right, so here's the plan. If you don't know by now, we're going to hit our top 10 takeaways from Week 5, the biggest storylines, the best players, the top plays, and some disappointing results if you're a Cowboys fan. But first... Wank, wank. Remember to give us a thumbs up if you're watching on the old YouTube at NFL on CBS. And of course, subscribe wherever you get your podcast so you never miss a show. All right, let's do it, boys. First up, going to Breech's old neck of the woods, Santa Clara, California, where the Cowboys have yet to get off the bus. What's that, Breech?
Breech bot 3,000.
No, of course that was you. The 49ers and future Hall of Famer Brock Purdy look to be unbeatable, which is crazy to say because we're talking about Brock Purdy, no longer Mr. Irrelevant. So, Brinson, before we talk about the winners here, what are we to make of Dak Prescott, who has a history of not showing up in the big moments? Is that fair here, or does some of the blame, I should say, go to the defense and Dan Quinn?
Yeah, I mean, we're recording this with around 3 to 4 minutes left in the game because it's such a blowout. We started the show early, and Sunday Night Football is focusing on 3 minutes left in the game. Sunday Night Football is focusing on John Lynch high-fiving everyone on the bench because he already got down to the sideline as the 49ers GM, obviously. Kyle Shanahan's still grinding out there, but it's 42-10. This is, I mean, to me, what this game isn't about a failure of the Cowboys offense or the Cowboys defense. It's about the 49ers letting the Cowboys know that there's an upper echelon of NFC teams and that you're going to need to stand in the line and give the bouncer $20 if you want to come in, because the only people allowed in otherwise from the VIP line, where you bypass the bouncer, you bypass all the jabronis standing up front trying to get in the club. The only teams allowed in are the Niners, the Eagles, and the Detroit Lions.
So, Breech, let me put it to you this way. Dak threw 15 interceptions last year. Only played 12 games. Didn't look great tonight. And you could say the defense has been, quote unquote, dominant, but they were defensive men's against the Giants, the Jets, and the Patriots. So, and of course, the Cardinals team they couldn't beat. Where are you on Dak and maybe the Cowboys overall?
Well, I'll say, first of all, if this was a measuring stick game, the 49ers took the measuring stick, broke over the Cowboys' head, and then beat them with it. I mean, that's what kind of game this was. And if you're a Cowboys fan, the last thing you want to see is Dak Prescott getting thoroughly outplayed by the last pick in the NFL draft. Brock Purdy was so much better. I'm sure if you ask a Cowboys fan, would they rather have Dak Prescott or Brock Purdy for the rest of the season? I have to think most of them probably pick Brock Purdy. And we're talking about a quarterback and Dak who's been there since 2016. But as someone who had to watch a quarterback get his team to the playoffs 5 straight seasons and not win a single playoff game, Dak is definitely kind of emitting some Andy Dalton qualities out here where he's more talented than Andy Dalton. But I'm talking about you see a ceiling. You see a ceiling where Dak can get this team to the playoffs. Can he get them to the next level? Can he get them to the Super Bowl? I'm not sure he can. I don't think he can beat a team like the 49ers. He struggles every time he plays. And whenever they're in these big situations, and look, the coaching was horrible. The plays, the receivers couldn't get open. That's on Mike McCarthy for not coming up with a better game plan. So this is not all on Dak Prescott. I think Mike McCarthy was equally bad here. But man, if I'm Jerry Jones and I want to win a Super Bowl in my lifetime, I'm not sure I can do it with Dak. That doesn't mean they should get rid of him because he can get them to the playoffs every year. But if I want that Super Bowl, I'm not sure I can do it with Dak.
So two real quick follow-ups here. One, I mentioned that this was, in my quarterback tiers, I did this all season. I got caught so much crap for putting Dak below Daniel Jones. And like the whole thing was you had to read the tiers. I didn't think Dak was worse than Daniel Jones. I just put Dak in the same ceiling as the other guys who had a ceiling. Like you were not going to get, like, you just know who Dak is and you know what Dak's going to be and you know what Dak is going to do for the entire season. Like, but you don't feel like there's some untapped upside. Like for instance, like with Daniel Jones before the season, we didn't know what Daniel Jones would be. He might stink. He might take a leap. Similarly, like, but Dak is like decent floor, decent ceiling, and that's where we are. And I also think, like,
isn't it Andy Dalton though? To Breech's point,
yeah, he's a rich man's Andy Dalton. That's not a good spot to be.
It is.
Well,
not.
you acted like that was
worse.
a
you could be like Matt Corral.
I think that I mean, Dalton's not a bad comp for being in terms of.
I mean,
Dak
did fall to like the 5th round for a reason.
Yeah, off-field stuff. That's why he fell.
Wait, what?
Dak's
clean as a whistle off the field.
No, coming out, he had off-field stuff. That's why he fell.
I don't think that's true, but we can move on.
Yeah, I mean, you're feel free to look it up. I mean, that's why he fell. That's not a mystery. Like we knew that.
Okay.
He got jumped on spring break one year at Mississippi State. I remember that.
I didn't think Dak had any off-field stuff.
Yeah, I think he had a DUI. I think he had something come up right around during the draft process that spring.
Is this how you got your okay? Anyway, moving on.
But so yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's easy to make point the finger at Dak and obviously Mike McCarthy because I like to certainly call it Mike McCarthy time and time again. But is this also a case where this is just week 1 of the Bills getting outclassed by the Jets? Or is this a case where we have to be concerned? Again, they play in the NFC, so it's not like they're going to be a long line of teams, although, Brinson, as you mentioned, the 49ers are there, the Detroit Lions are there, so there's competition. But I don't know. What do you take away from this once you go back to the locker room and have to figure out how to put the pieces back together?
I think if you're the other thing I was going to mention, too, that I forgot was that this was like a sneaky Kyle Shanahan revenge game against Dan Quinn. Because Kyle Shanahan took all the blame for that Falcons Super Bowl loss, and he definitely believes that Dan Quinn's defense coughed up enough points to let the Patriots come back, and he just dropped a 40 burger on Dan Quinn's face. But I think if you're the Cowboys, you are very much in pick up the pieces mode. You're 3-2, you're fine. You don't feel like you're going to win the division because the Eagles are off to this great start. You do feel like you're a playoff team because the NFC is just sort of staggered in a way that you feel like you're in a good shape, but there are some surprising teams popping up, whether the Buccaneers or the Rams. And at the same time, you're like, okay, we're a playoff team, but how are we like I think that you walk away from this game as a member of the Cowboys wondering, are we good enough to compete with the best teams in our conference and actually make it to the Super Bowl, which is the goal we had before the season?
Breech bot says no.
Oh God!
I know. I've turned on the. I've malfunctioned.
Cowboys.
Turned on the Cowboys. But you know what? If you're the Cowboys, though, you're thinking being the second best team in the NFC East isn't the worst thing. You get the 5 seed again. You play an NFC South team in the first round of the playoffs. You get your playoff win. You lose in the divisional round and call it a year.
That's so do that now, and then you can take off Thanksgiving, spend it with your family, and get on with your end of.
You're like the guy who shows up the course. You're like, look, I'm just trying to shoot a 110 and just really keep moving on. And you guys tell me how much I owe you for beers. Let's go.
So you're done with the Cowboys, Breech? Am I hearing you correctly?
No, I'm not. Look, if you look at the Cowboys schedule, they can beat, I think, any team that's left on it, except for the AFC teams. I think because they play the Bills, the Dolphins, the Chargers. I think they'll struggle with all those teams. They might win one of those. But I think they can beat the rest of the NFC teams on their schedule. I think they can split with the Eagles. So by no means are they done. They're going to get 11 or 12 wins and make the playoffs. I just don't think they have a shot at getting the Super Bowl. And I picked them to get the Super Bowl. I'm off the Super Bowl bandwagon. I still think they get to the playoffs. No Super Bowl.
By the way, if you told Cowboys fans before this game, you held Christian McCaffrey to 2.7 yards per carry and 27 receiving yards, do you think that they would be like, oh, that's cool, we lost 42-10? I mean, my God.
Well, God, they'd be thrilled. They'd be like, whoa, did we lose in overtime? Or what the heck
they'd be like, oh, I guess the score is like 13-10 us. It's like, no, you actually scored 10 and they scored 42. Brock Purdy, man, he might be Tom Brady 2.0. And I don't mean that in the sense of he's gonna be the greatest quarterback ever to play football, just that he has this innate ability to hit the throws he needs to hit. He understands Kyle Shanahan's offense perfectly. Or maybe a better example is he's a souped up Jimmy G.
No, I think you were closer the first time. I never was on Jimmy G. I think Tom Brady's. The thing I was thinking about, and to come back to your points, Breech, Brock Purdy probably looks more like Dak Prescott if he's playing for Mike McCarthy. I think this is just a perfect marriage of coach and guy who's locked in and super smart.
What if you flip quarterbacks? And Dak is with the Niners. Dak is a all MVP multiple times.
Yeah, I mean, you would imagine. And Breech sort of touched on it. It feels like Mike McCarthy's not putting Dak in position to have success. And I don't want to blame this all on Mike McCarthy. Dak did throw the 3 interceptions. But I don't know, man. I never got the Mike McCarthy hired. I know he took the year off and spent a lot of time at PFF looking at analytics. And a leopard doesn't change his spots is all I'm saying. And they look, I don't know there's no team on planet Earth that's currently going to go in to Levi Stadium, if it's still called that, go to Santa Clara and beat this 49ers team the way they're currently constituted. And Collinsworth talked about it a bunch. And he said basically everyone plays the same position on offense, like all 5 eligibles can do anything. And that's the problem. Like when you can't cover anyone, when Kyle Juszczyk out of Harvard, which apparently is a pretty good school, is out there running over people, running, Christian McCaffrey routes, and Brandon Ayuk or at least Deebo Samuel's running the ball out of the backfield. You don't have any answers. And dudes are falling left and right, getting hurt on the defensive side of the ball. And if they were fully healthy, I still think this game is probably 3 touchdowns. Like, I don't know how you solve this puzzle.
Is there any chance the 49ers go undefeated?
It was domination.
Is there any chance the 49ers go undefeated?
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, I'd imagine they'd lose, but show me the team that's playing better than they are right now.
Bro, the only question we had about the 49ers coming this season was, can Brock Purdy be a good enough quarterback? And the only reason we asked it was we have a small sample size result of what he done, and he suffered a UCL injury. And the issue was like, that's Tommy John. We don't know what's going to happen with that. We just don't know. Like, there were a lot of interceptable passes last year, and he's still been lucky this year, but he just has this like panache. He has like the it factor. And if he plays the way he's played for the first 5 weeks of the season over the course of an entire year, he will, 1, be in the MVP discussion, and 2, like, yes, they could run the table, but I don't think they will.
Breech, did the Cowboys make the playoffs?
Yes.
Did they win a playoff game?
If they get that 5 seed and get to play an NFC South team in the wild card round, I like their chances. Doesn't mean they will. But
Cowboys Bucks 7.0, like
yeah,
the 18th time they played in the last 5 years.
I don't know, man. I might take Baker in that game.
No, I would too. All right, let's move on.
Here we go. Going to jolly old England, where the Jags have spent the past 2 weeks filling up on fish and chips, sausage and mash, Cornish pasties, and of course, some Falcons and Buffalo. See how I did that? All right, Breech. I hate to bring this up, but one of Brinson's bold predictions before the season was that the Jags would finish as the number 1 seed in the AFC after 5 games. How do we feel about this team after they beat the brakes off of a Bills team who looked like they literally just got off the plane?
Yeah, the Bills look like the
how do you not set Breech up for did the Bills screw up their travel schedule, by the way?
Yeah,
I was going to follow up with that, but sure.
Well, that's just where I'm going to start. I'm just going to ignore the first part of the question so that I don't have to give Brinson any credit because the Jags are looking good right now. I don't know why any team at this point is flying into London on Friday morning when you have a 5-hour time difference from the East Coast. You need at least the first 2 days to adjust. And by the time you wake up Sunday, you're still dead. The Bills look totally jet lagged out there.
Breech,
and that's,
sorry to interrupt you, but I want to tell you what Sean McDermott said after the game, because this is how the Matthew Fairburn and the Athletic started his story after the whooping they took. During the week, Sean McDermott deferred to his sports science department when asked about the Bills' travel plans. And then Sean went on to say, we need to evaluate everything because I didn't feel like our energy was good enough early in the game. So are you firing the sports science department?
Hey, yes. Sean, fire the sports science department, hire me, hire Brinson, hire Wilson, because we say this every year. Go to one at the beginning of the week. The Jaguars, they had a vacation out there. They've been out there for 10 days, and they're just beating the tails off of everyone because they know how to do this London thing because they do it every year. So I hate that this is taking a little bit of credit away from what Jacksonville did in this game because they were dominant and they were absolutely the better team. But it is, like Ryan said, it looked like Buffalo had just gotten off the plane. The first 3 quarters, it looked like they were playing with cement weights on their feet. I mean, it was just that bad. So I give Jacksonville all the credit for winning this game. I don't really, I'm not going to look at the Bills and say, oh, they're bad because they lost to Jacksonville. But to answer your first question, are they a team that could become the number 1 seed as our friend Will Brinson predicted at the beginning of the season? I mean, you have to feel a little bit better about it. I still don't think they're going to get there. There's too many good teams and the Chiefs are still good. So yeah, I don't think they're going to be number 1 overall, but I think they'll make the playoffs.
Well, and what'll be interesting too, the Jaguars get the Colts this coming week. Anthony Richardson, I mean, I'd be shocked if he played given the injury. We'll get to the AFC South later, but I'm curious to see how the Jaguars look after 2 weeks in London, adjusting to being in London and then coming back to America with no bye week and trying to readjust to that time schedule. And I think it's in Indy, so that'll be an
Jacksonville.
Oh, it's in Jacksonville. Sorry, yeah. So that's better, I guess. By you get home, you don't have to travel somewhere else. Schedule, but that game to me will be interesting, especially Gardner Minshew revenge game on the Bills. I really do think that, man, like I don't know that we can undersell how dumb a decision it was to fly in Friday. Like
They're following the science, according to Sean.
I mean,
Who came up with that?
Harry, toss a graphic up again of the last 2 times that the Bills have been in London. And let's look at these numbers.
Josh Allen talked about chugging coffee. He doesn't even drink coffee.
I'm just saying, it's like, look at this. You lose 9-6 against the Jaguars in 2021. Allen's 31-47, 0 touchdowns, 3 picks. This year, you lose 25-20. Allen's 27-40, throws 3 touchdowns and has a pick. And like, I don't know that but I think that like watching this game, my takeaway was Buffalo looks like a team. It'd be like if you're the Bills and Jaguars are playing on a neutral field, but the Bills have to take Tylenol PMs. Like that's what it looked like. Is the Bills were like sluggish and like rah, rah, rah. And the Jaguars just looked like a team that was well adjusted to it. I also think the 2-0 in London is huge for the Jaguars. They're in a really good spot. We'll talk about the AFC South more, but I think that for me, the big takeaway is I'm not going to panic on this, but I do worry about some of the Bills' injuries on defense that are sort of mounting up because that defense has been the number 1 defense by DVOA, according to FTN Fantasy, I guess, which is where Aaron Schatz is now, throughout the first 4 weeks of the season. Bills' offense is, I thought, was still pretty good, but definitely lethargic.
Yeah, Matt Milano left with a knee injury.
They think he's done for the year.
Jones, 1 second here. Daquan Jones left with a pec injury, and Sean McDermott said after the game that Daquan's injury did not look good. So that's certainly Matt Milano is one of their best players. So that's certainly
they think Matt Milano's done for the year.
Okay.
So that's and Micah Hyde's banged up. Tre'Davious White Achilles injury. I mean, like that's some major injuries for a Bills defense. That is like that defense makes it the Bills one of the best teams in the league.
And Kyer Elam, last year's first-round pick, the cornerback out of Florida, they pulled him late in the game, and that's not a good look. The guy that replaced him was just called it from the practice squad, and Sean McDermott said, we just want to get some other bodies in there. That's not what you want to hear when you are already down Trey White.
The good news for the Bills is they will not need their defense for the next 2 games because they play the Giants and the Patriots.
That is fair.
And
at least they're not playing the Bengals.
Yep.
Zing. That's in 4 weeks.
Oh man, the Giants and Daniel Jones has a neck injury. Speaking of the Bengals,
you're welcome.
Breech will let you gloat here. I thought that the Cardinals had a chance to win this game. Josh Dobbs had not thrown an interception all year. He was completing 70% of his passes. We knew that Joe Burrow was not himself, but he suddenly looked to be himself once he got to Arizona there. And he said after the game that the first touchdown he threw, that laser in the back of the end zone, probably to Jamar Chase, because I think he threw 18 touchdowns to Jamar. He said that made him feel like he was pretty close to back. He had a longer scramble later in the game. He looked pretty athletic there as well. Are the Bengals still alive? Because I was the one last week talking about, look, man, shut it down. The season's over. And you said all you got to do is get to the bye. So 1 down, 1 to go, right?
Get to the bye. And also, as Brinson mentioned in Slack earlier, all my picks suck this week. The only team that came through for me was the Cincinnati Bengals, who I said would dominate this game. And Joe Burrow finally looked like Joe Burrow. I mean, that was the thing, is that, look, number 1, he can't throw the deep pass. He had not been able to do it all season. He was 2 for 22 through 4 weeks. He couldn't put a bunch of weight on the cap to throw the deep ball. Well, guess what? He threw an absolute dime on a 63-yard TD, Jamar Chase. So it was huge to see that. Wilson, you mentioned that he scrambled. He had a 10-yard scramble at a key point in this game. Joe Burrow was not that was an element of his game that was just gone this year because of the calf. That's back in play. And then the touchdown pass you're talking about was him kind of dancing around in the pocket and moving around and evading the pass rush and then throwing for a score. That also wasn't there the first 4 weeks. So this is absolutely the closest Joe Burrow has looked to being Joe Burrow. And here's the thing is that, look, a lot of doom and gloom with the Bengals through the first 4 weeks. We had it on this podcast. Are the Bengals done? It was a nightmare 4 weeks. But at the end of the day, we're through 5 weeks.
What's your record?
Burrow looks better, and the Bengals are one game out of first place. If you would have told a Bengals fan after week 2 with Burrow's calf and they're 0-2 that they'd be one game out of first place going after week 5, any fan would have taken that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the positive spin that you put on this.
Is there a negative spin from a 34-20 win?
Well, you as a 3-point road favorite beat Josh Dobbs and
That beat the Cowboys. That was within one score of the 49ers last week.
The transitive property doesn't apply in the NFL, so please don't try to use that. You beat is a 3-point road. Look. Hey, by the way, shout out.
Okay, so winning an NFL game by 2 touchdowns isn't impressive.
I picked the Bengals as one of my best bets on the Brinson versus Coach, where I'm representing the Pick Six podcast and currently getting my ass kicked. And he had the Cardinals, so that's a good flip. I picked them. I like the Bengals this week a lot. I had them as one of my best bets on the bet show on Thursday. I'm just saying that, like, I think here's my concern: the Bengals railroaded the Rams a few weeks ago, and it was Joe Burrow. They're 0-2, and Joe Burrow goes, "We have to win this game. It's a must-win game. We cannot lose this game." And he comes out. They play great, and then what happened the next week? They got dog stomped by the Titans. And then this week they're playing. Stop, Breech. This week they're playing the Cardinals. By the way, who's supposed to be the worst team in football, and they're starting Josh Dobbs, lose James Conner. Really don't have a whole lot in terms of their roster. And the Bengals win 34-20 on the road. Look, double-digit touchdown, 2-touchdown win on the road, always good. But Burrow also said the same thing. We cannot lose this game. This is a must-win game. We have to win this game. So my concern is there a letdown versus Seahawks? And if there is, do the Bengals then fall to 2-4 going to the bye? Like, this is good. You won. You look good. Optimism reigns supreme. But if you lose to the Seahawks in week 6 and go into your bye 2-4 with the Niners and the Bills coming out on the backside, you're kind of in a bad spot.
Yeah, but I think the takeaway is that Joe Burrow's back, number one, and that's the whole point of the conversation. They could easily lose to the Seahawks. The Seahawks are not a bad football team.
Well, I'll say 2 things to that real quick. Is number one, the Rams game where they won 19-16. That wasn't a Joe Burrow was back game. He still couldn't throw downfield. He was dinking and dunking the entire time. The defense won that game.
Joe Burrow's on steroids.
I'm saying he wasn't back in that game. That he
How
played
did he magically
football.
get back this week, though? Then that doesn't make any sense.
He didn't re-injure his calf. It's healing every week as long as he doesn't have a setback, and he hasn't had a setback. It's just called medical science, normal medical science.
So, Breech, according to
which Brinson does not believe in, by the way.
According to playoffstatus.com,
Brinson still uses leeches. Sorry,
I do use leeches. I love blood.
According to playoffstatus.com, which I found on the old internets here, Breech, how do you feel about at 2-3 the Bengals playoff chances at 24%?
I feel. They're 0-2 in the division, so that's not ideal, and that's probably why they're so low. But again, they're a game out of first place, and if Burrow's healthy, they feel like the best team in the North.
So currently, as it stands, the Steelers are in first place in the North. The Ravens are a wild card seed, or Ravens are the 6th seed as a wild card at 3-2. The Colts at 3-2 are the 5th seed, and the Bills are 3-2 as a 7th seed. Cleveland, LA, Houston, Tennessee, the Jets, and then the Bengals. Yeah, they're right in the mix.
Right.
All right. So I think that's a big win. I mean, it's hard not to be a big win. That seems, especially and correct me if I'm wrong, Breech, when's the last time they scored a touchdown on the road?
They got their first half touchdown of the year in this game. It took 5 weeks for them to score a touchdown in the first half.
All right.
And real quick, shout out to Jamar Chase, who set the franchise record with 15 receptions, broke the record held by Carl Pickens.
Yeah, that was something else. By the way, it's I don't know what's the word I'm looking for. It's a step in the right direction when NFL retweets the fact that Jamar broke the record and then also retweets the audio and video of him saying, "I'm always effing open." I was like, all right, that's the message received. Joe Burrow finally got that message because he could actually throw the ball overhand and step into it.
Well, let me ask you guys this real quick. Wilson, ask you first, since your team is in first place. Do you think your Steelers stay in first place?
No,
and who do you think wins the division if not?
If Burrow's healthy, let's see what they do, but I'll go with the Ravens. But the Ravens cannot stop shooting themselves in the foot. And let's go there because, Brinson, this team has found ways to lose in overtime to the Colts at home and then found ways to lose on the road to the Steelers. Joey Porter had something like negative 50 interceptions in his college career at Penn State. Somehow he gets an interception in the end zone late in the fourth quarter. Then instead of putting the Ravens up by 2 scores, gives the ball back to you don't want to give the ball back to Matt Canada in that situation. And for the first time all season, they throw bombs to George Pickens, who apparently is pretty good, and it works his way into the end zone, and they end up winning that football game. But what are we to make of the Ravens? We just talked about the Bills sort of being hot and cold. We talked about the Cowboys being underwater and freezing in this game in Santa Clara. The Ravens, on paper, with Joe Burrow's injury, are the best team in the division. They play like they're deep down inside they want to be the Steelers.
I think the issue I have with the Ravens is that it feels like what they're doing on offense is purposely intended to get away from Lamar Jackson running the ball, because that's what Greg Roman did, and try to be this Todd Monken air raid system without incorporating, so Todd Monken's brother, Jeff Monken, is the head coach at Army and runs the triple option. Like, why aren't you running some triple option and running some air raid and just blending them together? Like, air raid is basically a passing version of the triple option, because you have one guy who has 3 decisions to make, whether in the triple option is handoffs, in the air raid it's the same routes that you're running every single time. I think that they're so focused on Lamar Jackson not being not being a running quarterback, because they hired this new OC and gave him all this money, that they're kind of limiting themselves offensively, instead of make Lamar Jackson this massive threat as a runner, so teams creep in and then you can go up top on them. I think that they're it's like a accidental hampering of their offense. And yeah, dude, credit to the Steelers defense. They kept him in this. I mean, I think CBS, I think it was Ian Eagle was on this call. I think we cut to Matt Canada more times than NBC cut to Taylor Swift on Sunday night. They just kept going to these Matt Canada offensive coaching box spots, and he's just rubbing his forehead, his bald forehead, and he's I just really can't figure out what to do. And then lo and behold, the Steelers block a punt, get the ball back, and it could have been a touchdown. I mean, Kenny Pickett's clutch. I think
he's not clutch.
Okay, I think Kenny Pickett's a gamer who is not going to be. That throw to Pickens was sick.
Great. He's an NFL quarterback. He's had exactly one. He's thrown for 2 touchdowns in one game exactly once in his career.
Matt Canada's a problem. The Steelers
Kenny Pickett's a problem too. I've gone back and watched all his throws, and he got hurt last week on a throw. If he just thrown the ball, he wouldn't have gotten hit. But I mean, it's not good. The offense stinks.
He's not great. He's not great. Yeah.
Well, you know what Kenny Pickett didn't do on Sunday against the Steelers? He didn't turn the ball over twice in the fourth quarter.
That's true.
Because you mentioned Lamar's interception, but he also lost a fumble the next possession, and then that set up a Steelers field goal, which essentially iced the game. So I mean, the
Ravens gave that game back
twice in the fourth quarter.
No,
the Ravens gave that game back to the Steelers.
And Ron Stanley, the left tackle, got whooped, to your point, Breech, by Alex Highsmith on that strip sack, and that didn't help. And yeah, I mean, there's a whole bunch of things, and it's crazy because Steelers have now won 6 of the last 7 of these matchups somehow against the Ravens. This is only the 4th time in 9 games that Lamar has played because of injury, and I thought there was no way on planet Earth that the Steelers going to let alone win, cover the -4.5 or the +4.5 they were getting. And here we are, just watching some truly ugly football. Luckily, I didn't see every play. I'll go back and watch it at some point when I have.
What do you think the odds? And I'm looking up right now, so I don't know the exact answer, but I'm going to check. What do you think the odds are for to win the AFC North?
It's in terms of wins, or who's going to do it?
I would guess.
Imagine the Ravens.
Yeah, Ravens probably plus 200, plus 220.
Ravens, Browns, Steelers, and probably Bengals. Maybe Bengals.
No, the Bengals can't be last. The Bengals are second, I bet.
Bengals are last.
They are? What? I'm betting it all right now.
This on DraftKings. Just got had it open. Ravens are plus 140. They're the favorite. The Browns are plus 275. The Steelers 3.5 to 1, and the Bengals plus 475.
Yeah.
I would absolutely bet the Bengals in that spot.
You just got finished dog and Breech for the Bengals not being very good.
5 to 1. The Bengals who are a game back in first place. Give me with a bye coming up.
You actually do think that the Bengals.
Brinson's back on the Burrow train.
Interesting.
No, I wouldn't. I don't. If the Bengals were minus 125, I wouldn't bet it. But 5 to 1, and they beat the.
Well, if you don't think they're going to win, you're just blowing money, though, right? So you have some sense of
I think that they should be somewhere. I think it should be plus 250, not 5 to 1.
Well, and the one thing about the Ravens is it kind of feels like the AFC's version of the Cowboys, where I'm not sure we know how good they are because of Yes, they went in this game with a 3-1 record, but the first game of the season, they beat a rookie quarterback making his first career start. That was CJ Stroud. Week 2, they beat the Bengals. Joe Burrow has one calf. Their other win was against the Browns when Deshaun Watson decided he couldn't play before the game. So you have another rookie quarterback making his first career start. So you've beaten 2 rookies making their first start ever and a quarterback with one calf. So what do we know?
We know that they're 3-2 and they're not very good. Harry, I missed your message here. What'd you say?
I think he's saying, why don't we, you know what, I'll take this one, Wilson. The Patriots, not only, and I said this on a short that we created, the dynasty, if it wasn't dead, it's dead now. It is 6 feet in the ground. Bill Belichick has lost 4 games in his career as Patriots coach by 30 points or more. 2 of them happened in the last 2 weeks. We've seen so much Bailey Zappi. He might as well be young Sheldon on CBS at this point. Mac Jones is pressing. Bill O'Brien's not calling good plays. There's a bunch of injuries to guys like Matt Judon, etc. And the Patriots defense, it's one thing. You go to Dallas and you get your ass kicked by the Cowboys. All right. Like, that's a good team. You bring Derek Carr with a busted wing back to New England and get skunked 34-0 by the Saints, who everyone was like, well, are we sure that this Saints team isn't terrible? This is the largest home shutout loss in Patriots history. It's the largest shutout loss in Bill Belichick's career as a head coach. This is my question for you, Ryan. Is Bill Belichick the head coach of the New England Patriots in Week 1, 2024?
That's a great question. He's 70. This is an absolute train wreck. And the reality is this. Before and after Tom Brady was with Bill Belichick was not the Hall of Fame coach he is now. And that's just the truth. And you can spin it any way you want, but that's where we're at. Mac Jones has, to your point, been a disaster. And you can't blame Matt Patricia because Matt Patricia's, I don't know what he's doing, spending the money he made last year.
He's with the Eagles now.
Trying to get Mac Jones killed. So you talk about that Cowboys game where, Mac got pulled. Mac got pulled again this game. Bill insists he's going to be the starter next week. And the offensive line sucks. There's injuries along the offensive line. They, for reasons that defy comprehension, didn't draft any tackles, which is what they sorely needed. They kept drafting interior offensive linemen. They started those rookies in Week 1 against the Eagles and they got demolished against Jalen Carter. No crime in that, but at some point you have to get better. Mac is not mobile. The wide receivers aren't getting open. DeMario Douglas and Juju both got concussed in this game. And the list goes on and on and on. So you can make all the excuses you want. This team sucks. And you make a list of teams that you just can't figure out. And it feels like we're seeing some of the worst football that I can recall seeing in such a concentrated period of time. Patriots, the Broncos, the Giants, the Bears, even though they smoked the Commanders, which is a huge win for them. But those teams routinely are the ones you talk about the most. And here's the thing, Breech. Here's the great news. This is going to be one of the deepest quarterback classes in recent memory. So all 4 of these teams could be drafting quarterbacks. But I think the question is the race for number 1 is on, although it could be very well the case that the Panthers never win a football game.
Patriots.
But I think there could be a lot of changes. Now, the Panthers don't win, the Bears get the pick.
I mean,
the Panthers might never win a game. You're right. Sorry. Yeah.
Even if the Patriots get the number 1 overall pick and take Caleb Williams, do you think Belichick really wants to stick around for that kind of
Let
rebuild?
me ask you this. Does Robert Kraft want him to stick around?
I think that, Brinson's question was, will he be the coach in Week 1 of 2024? And if I had to put a percentage on it, I would put 80% no. I just think that.
Wow.
He does want to break the record. I'll give you.
Why would he want to stick around? It to just. Go what?
Well, like he can. Do you when you of that 80%? What percent is he's retired and what percent is he's coaching someone else?
Well, real quick, if he goes 4-13, there's no guarantee he sets the record next season. It's going to have to be a thing where.
So 80% he leaves is what you're saying. I misunderstood. Okay.
Yeah. I think he leaves. And I think this is like
a mutual
Phil Jackson situation is what all I could think of, where he won 6 titles with the Bulls. Then when Jordan was gone, although this wasn't like he got pushed out, where Belichick pushed out
pretty good comp, yeah.
And then Jackson stayed with the Bulls for 2 more seasons after Jordan left and was like, yeah, this isn't working. I got to go find some talent, and that's how I'm going to win. And that's what it feels like Belichick's going to do. And I see.
Oh, dude, what if Belichick coaches the Chargers? Like he goes against Herbert, and he's like, dude, do you know what I will do with this defense? And he's like, and I'm going to bring in, I don't know, I would leave Kellen Moore there. I mean, but yeah, I think that's very interesting. I tend to agree with you that there's a very good chance that Belichick is not the coach of the Patriots in 2024. I think everybody involved wants him to break Don Shula's record with the Patriots. But if Belichick took over the Chargers next year, he would break Don Shula's record in 2 years. With the Patriots, you feel like it might be 5.
I don't think they would hire a 71-year-old coach, especially a defensive coach, and that's the issue.
How many teams are hiring Bill, like dumping their coach to hire Bill Belichick if he left the Patriots after this year?
I think if the available candidates were names like Mike Tomlin, because Steelers fans always want to fire him, Mike Vrabel, because Titans fans, I would imagine, Breech are frustrated with him from time to time, and Bill Belichick.
Hold on, Vrabel over Belichick?
Hold on, just stop. I'll say it in a second. If Tomlin, Vrabel, and Belichick are on the market, I think Belichick would be the last one to get hired.
That is a hot take.
I don't know.
I think Belichick's the first one hired. Wait, you're saying that? Okay, so let's take.
He's the most conservative. He's the most conservative coach that we don't talk about. Like every decision he makes, they kick the hottest take on planet Earth. They kicked a field goal on 4th and 3. They missed. Breech made comment of that. They had 4th and 3 in the second half. They were down 21 points on the Saints 40. They punted.
All right, so let's say hypothetically that Andy Reid is like, you know what? I am just tired of coaching Patrick Mahomes in this offense. I kind of want to go like open a mac and cheese shop, like an artisanal mac and cheese shop in Piscataway, New Jersey. He leaves the Chiefs. He goes to Piscataway. He opens up the artisanal mac and cheese shop. The Chiefs have an open job. Everyone wants a Chiefs job because Patrick Mahomes is the quarterback. He's locked down. You got Kelsey. You got a pretty good defense. You got enough weapons. Bill Belichick, Mike Tomlin, and Mike Vrabel all put their applications in. Breech. Who do the Patriots pick? I mean, who do the Chiefs pick?
Probably Belichick.
I don't think so.
I just if you're a team like the Chiefs or really the Chargers, you're in that Belichick's old. He's going to want to win now. He signs a 3-year deal and he says, I'm going to win a Super Bowl in one of these 3 years or I'm just done. You're like, that's it. That's all. That's my terms. Agree with it. And I think he's probably the first one. Who do you think it would be, Wilson? You clearly don't agree.
I think it would be Vrabel or Tomlin. I mean,
that's crazy.
Tomlin's 50. Vrabel's a little younger than that, I believe. Belichick's 70, 71.
What if he went back to Cleveland? I think that would be an interesting one.
That actually I could get behind. And Browns fans I know would probably get behind it as well. Bring back
Vrabel's 48, by the way.
Yeah, so he's a little younger than Tomlin. All right. Onward and upward, boys.
Let's take a break first.
Harry, do we want to take a break here? Is that the plan?
I think we want to take a break.
Break.
Let's take a break. When we come back, Wilson will tell us what's next.
100% awesome.
We make this look good.
100% hilarious. 97% on Rotten Tomatoes.
That's so dope.
And you still haven't watched Ninja Turtles on Paramount Plus yet?
Y'all not as cool as I thought you would.
Oh, no. Hey, man. Listen, we were kidding.
Ninja Turtles is effortlessly cool and crushes for absolutely every age.
Jeez, Dad, you really went buck wild there.
Ninja Turtles, rated PG, now streaming on Paramount Plus.
All righty, boys. Oh, man. So Harry is not a fan of the Eagles as I read the rundown here. The Eagles offense isn't as good as it should be. Although they look good at times. We saw Jalen get into it, throwing the ball down the field to A.J. Brown. The running game is what the running game is. The defense is what the defense is. And that's what Harry notes in the second half of the rundown there. It doesn't matter because this defense is pretty freaking amazing. Breech, how do you feel about this team? Because they have not hit on all cylinders, and the teams that we've talked about previously that have had some L's on the schedule haven't been hitting on all cylinders and have gotten embarrassed at one point or another. I mean, this isn't the Cowboys. This isn't the Bills. This team is 5-0 in back-to-back years for the first time in team history.
Yeah, I think that is the ultimate point here is that even if the Eagles aren't winning as impressively as they were last year. The thing is, they're beating the teams they're playing. They do it in all sorts of different ways. They should change their name to the Chameleons because they just adjust to whoever they're playing, and they beat them. They can beat you whether it's running the ball, passing the ball. If Jalen Hurts is off, then their defense will do it. So, look, if the wins aren't as impressive, 5-0, still 5-0, and I think that is the bottom line here. And sure, you look at their schedule and you're like, Patriots, Vikings. And I thought this was probably their most impressive win of the season. They just kind of had the Rams have one big drive really at the beginning of the game. Rams scored a touchdown on their first possession and then only scored once the rest of the game. And Philly's defense really took over. Jalen Hurts had a huge game, over 300 passing yards, over 50 rushing yards. So that's it. They just kind of punch you and then they hit you with the jab a bunch of times until you want to quit, and it's working.
Well, I would say like a couple of things. One, I mean, maybe push back a little bit on. Like, I do agree with the idea that the offense hasn't been great. Like you feel like the Hurts passing attack hasn't been what it was last year. You look at the stats though, and then you're like, well, that's weird. AJ Brown, 127 receiving yards. Dallas got it 117 on 14 total targets. Got it had the touchdown as well. And then Hurts was their leading rusher, 15 carries, 72 yards. DeAndre Swift, 17 for 70. And then Kenneth Gainwell, 7 for 17. Nothing like to write home about. But like, one, I think this Rams team is better than people give them credit for. And two, I don't know. This felt like the Rams brought their best effort for this game at home. And we're leading it. Were they leading at half, or were they? Yeah, they were up 14-0. No, excuse me. The Eagles had that touchdown. Oh man, this is a crazy. The Eagles were in field goal range, down 14-10, and we're clearly going to kick a field goal. But with 7 seconds left, the way the things played out, they get the ball with the first down, first and goal on the 7 or 8, with 7 seconds left. Throw it in the end zone, get pass interference. There's 2 seconds left. So you have one play remaining. And Greg Olsen and Kevin Burkhardt are completely agreed. There's no chance they don't do the brotherly shove / tush push right there with 2 seconds left at the half to go up 17-10. And it feels like that kind of flipped the game because they got it. Obviously, it's an unstoppable play at this point with what they do. But it's like, I feel like the Rams brought their A game and the Eagles still just had too much for them. It felt a little bit like Niners Cowboys, where you got this team that's like, yeah, we're involved in this NFC battle too, but they show up and then they're like, we just don't have enough firepower to play with these guys.
So I'm looking at last year's stats compared to this year's stats, and 4.6 yards per rush through 5 weeks this year, same as last year. Passing yards 240 to 241, so those are the same as well. Where things start to separate themselves is in the red zone. So red zone last year, they converted 2/3 of the time. This year, they're only converting just over 40% of the time. So that's perhaps where the discrepancy is. Brian Johnson also taking over play calling from Shane Steichen is waiting to hit his groove. But I think these are, like we like to say, these are rich people problems. These are good problems to have. And one of the things I kept coming back to when I was watching tush push success after tush push success, if Matt Canada only ran the tush push, this team would probably have 4 wins right now. I'll just leave it at that. All right, so we're not concerned about the Eagles.
Nah.
Best team in the NFC after the 49ers?
49ers. 49ers, Eagles, Lions. I throw out Rams, Cowboys 4 and 5.
How's your list, Breech? Similar or different?
As much as I jumped off the Cowboys bandwagon and said I don't think they can win the Super Bowl, I would still probably put them as the 3rd best team. I think if they played the Lions tomorrow, as Wilson loves to say, on a neutral field in Manitoba, Canada,
nice.
That the Cowboys
Lions would be favored.
I'd probably pick the Cowboys.
So, all right, let's one word answer each. Neutral field, Manitoba, Canada. Detroit versus Dallas.
Lions.
Dallas.
Jesus. All right, Tampa versus Dallas, same field.
Dallas.
Seattle versus Dallas.
Ooh,
Dallas.
I'm taking Seattle in that game. So I think the message is after San Fran and Philly, it's wide open. What about?
Well, I think, but the other thing is like you have the upper tier of the Eagles, really just the 49ers by themselves. Then a slight below that, Brinson, Eagles, and then
the next tier is like Lions, Cowboys, Seahawks.
way down there.
Yeah.
So what if in that very same field in Manitoba, Canada, San Fran and Philly? What's that line?
I think San Fran is -3, and you get a lot of sharp action on Philly.
But also the Eagles defense isn't as dominant as it was last year. And I think the 49ers would have a little more success.
They did win today without Fletcher Cox, though, which is pretty impressive. Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter are a problem.
Yeah, that clogs things up in the middle. So the perimeter would have to be a
real quick before. I think we should move on because we're like halfway through, and we said we'd be moving faster. But shout out to Howie Roseman. Like Jason Kelsey's going to retire. They're going to have, it won't be as good, but they will have a succession plan for him. Landon Dickerson can move over. The guy behind him, Kelsey talks about, is really good. And the coaching, the offensive line is excellent. And then defensively, Fletcher Cox is going to retire. And they're going to have Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter. Like those two dudes are a problem in the middle.
All right, let's go to the Lions, where I said before the season that Jared Goff may be the second best quarterback in the conference, and he's getting competition from future Hall of Famer Brock Purdy. He's outplayed Jalen Hurts at this point, not Jalen Carter. Jalen Carter is probably in the running for MVP. But the Lions put an absolute whooping on the Panthers, and there are any number of reasons for that, to the point where our buddy Joe Person at The Athletic, who's covered the Panthers forever, wrote 6 things that could possibly change and the likelihood they'll happen. And number one on the list was fire Frank Reich. He said this probably won't happen, but David Tepper has been known to have a quick trigger. So we'll see, man. That's a mess over there, but that has nothing to do with Detroit. Detroit demolished his team. Jared Goff is playing at a high level, and we just talked about they're in tier 3-ish in the NFC, but they're going to the playoffs. It certainly feels that way. Brinson, where are we on this Lions team?
All right, here's my Lions hot take. I think if I were repicking it right now and wanted, and you know how I like to be a little controversial with, it's a hot take too. If I were repicking my Super Bowl matchup before the season, I would pick Dolphins versus Lions. That's who I think makes the Super Bowl as of today.
I don't think that's controversial. You said much more controversial things for sure.
Oh, good. The Lions, we've talked about this at length, are built in Dan Campbell's image. They're built through the trenches. The offensive line is stout. The defensive line is stout. Aiden Hutchinson is a freak. Like, talk about an all-time, like, hey, Trent Baalke, maybe you shouldn't have been so mad at Jim Harbaugh and just drafted the best player. It just happened to be coached by him. At number one, the offensive line, David Montgomery is like a revelation for this team. Josh Reynolds is playing awesome. Sam Laporta is making people forget that they traded TJ Hawkinson, who's a stud. And Jared Goff, were it not for Jalen Hurts, would be the best quarterback in the NFC right now. And I think
he's better than Jalen Hurts right now through 5 games. I think Brock Purdy is number one.
You could argue that Jalen Hurts is the best quarterback in the NFC right now. That maybe that's the hot take. This Detroit Lions team, like, let's think about their season here. They have week 1, go to Kansas City with all the expectations. You're playing the defending Super Bowl champions. There's really no reason that you're a touchdown underdog.
People are mad that they got picked for the week 1 game.
Exactly. They take care of business against the Chiefs. Week 2, they come home and they play the Seahawks, and it goes to overtime, and we're like, all right, maybe this is the real Detroit Lions. Well, they buckle right back down and stomp the Falcons in week 3. Like, I mean, not really stomp, but like snuff the Falcons out. Week 4, they go to Green Bay with Jordan Love sort of flourishing and absolutely bludgeon the Packers. And then week 5, and this is, remember, like our buddy Aaron Shaw said for years in Football Outsiders, Wilson, that a sign of a really, really good football team is that you smash inferior opponents. And the beat down they put on the Panthers today, like the box, it's like 48-24 or something, like 45-24. That doesn't do it justice. Like the Panthers scored 2 touchdowns late, and they were absolute garbage time. Nobody cares about it. The Panthers were not involved in this game. They were beaten in every aspect of this game, utterly and completely. Jared Goff was locked in. The running game was rolling. The defense was playing well. The Lions, I think, are the 3rd best team in the NFC, and I think they're closer to Philly as the number 2 than they are to Dallas as the number 4.
I'll just say real quick, because Brinson just covered the Lions a lot, is that every week I get more concerned with Bryce Young. The guy looks like he's in over his head. He had 2 ugly interceptions in the first half. And he
threw a pick on a screen pass.
on a screen pass.
It
Yes.
happens.
And so, well, yeah, but when it's every single week,
I know.
that's
It's tough,
problem.
man. You're right. No, it's
And
tough.
so when you're looking at the rest of the quarterbacks taken, you're the Colts and you're like, well, if Anthony Richardson can stay healthy, we feel good about him. If you're the Texans, you're like, oh, we feel really good about CJ Stroud. And if you're the Panthers, you're like, oh my God, did we blow it with the number 1 overall pick? And it's only 5 weeks and nobody's jumping to conclusions, but you can't be thrilled with what you have seen.
I'll say
so
this,
far.
Breech, and it's self-flagellation on my part, but every week I go back and watch all the rookie quarterbacks, so we talk about it on the podcast with Spielman for the draft. Bryce played better last week, but he still had the stupid fumble that cost him a fumble 6 from DJ Wanham. They had the interception today at Aiden Hutchinson you talked about. Had another interception where he didn't see the defensive back today. And those things can't happen. Now, look, I've been criticizing the wide receivers for not getting open. Thielen played pretty well today. Offensive line stinks. Chandler Zavala left on a stretcher. Luckily, he flew back with the team, so he apparently is going to be okay, hopefully, long-term. But that didn't help their cause, losing their guard. So there are a lot of concerns. But Bryce is up there, man, and there's no two ways about it. He has not played well, and I don't know if it's a case of CJ wouldn't play well in Carolina or not, but that's they trade up to get him, and now they got him, and they got some things to sort out.
And one name real quick, Brinson, I don't think you mentioned, was David Montgomery. Looks like one of the smartest moves of the offseason was adding
Really
him.
does.
And they gave it Jamal Williams, who's a touchdown monster last year, and Adam Montgomery, and he's like Jamal Williams, but souped up. And you look at they get most rushing touchdowns in the first 4 games of the season. Montgomery 6, Jamal Williams 6 from last year, and then Barry Sanders was 6 in 91. I think just really quickly on the Panthers, when I was doing a VSiN hit with like the Vegas radio station last week, and like I'm talking about, like, my mom and my dad are texting me about Frank Reich concerns. So Frank Reich, you were officially on the hot seat when Ann and Bob Brinson are worried that you are a problem for the Panthers.
And real quick, one commenter said Carolina's offense looked pretty good when Andy Dalton was in, and that is not my burner account. That is our friend Al Bundy, who once scored 4 touchdowns in a game for
He
Polk
sure
High.
did. The funny thing is,
if you had a
hold
burner
on,
account, it
hold
would
on,
be Andy
hold on,
Dalton.
Hold on 1 second. I just wanted to follow up. Joe Person also wrote in the Athletic, Breech, that maybe you start Andy Dalton because that was the only time that he threw 57 times. That's the only time that they really got things going. So that's also on the table.
Dude, by the way, if Carolina ends up with a 1 or 2 pick, and the Bear, let's say Carolina ends up giving the Bears the number 1 overall pick, they would have, in theory, given up Caleb Williams, DJ Moore, Jalen Carter, who they could have taken at number 9 overall, and 2 second-round picks for Bryce Young.
Yeah, that is the situation. All right. So it looks like producer Harry is not fond of teams that are 5-0 and 4-1, because now we're going to go to Minnesota, home of our colleague Cody Benjamin, who's in the locker room after the game, seeing Travis Kelce limp around, and also Justin Jefferson limp around. That's another story. Producer Harry wonders, Breech, is it time for the Chiefs to hit the panic switch? Because their offense isn't quite as electric as it typically has been. I have been guilty in the past of questioning this team early in the season when they got off to a slow start. I learned that lesson. So until they are dead in the ground, no way they can come back, I am not hitting the panic switch, but you may feel differently. That is the Chiefs tease us every year with some bad start. Everybody writes them
4-1.
No, I'm not this year specifically, but the offense, it's the same conversation we had with the Eagles, where the offense doesn't look as high powered. And so it's like, have they lost something? Did everything finally catch up to them? When they lost Tyreek Hill, can they rebound? Oh, well, they did, because they won the Super Bowl. And this year it's a little different because they don't have the receiving talent that they've had. They lost, I think, Juju Smith-Schuster was their leading receiver last year.
Yikes.
And won the Super Bowl.
Right. That's where I'm going with this year, though. I'm saying that now you have even less receiving talent than you had last year.
I think they have.
But you also have Travis Kelce banged up.
Yeah.
Rashee
Rice looks like he might be better than any of those guys.
But that was not my ultimate point. My ultimate point, though, is that the big shuffle came this year on the offensive line. And I feel like that part of it has kind of slowed things down because the unit has not been as good this year as it was last year. So if they do have an issue, that's their issue. And a lot of times offensive line, they kind of just build chemistry as the year goes and they get better. So theoretically the Chiefs will get better and you won't have to worry about this. But that is the definitely what you want to keep your eye on, especially since Juwan Taylor just doesn't even know how to stay on sides. Didn't have any issues today, but did for 2 different games. So I think the O-line is what you keep your eye on. But right now, it seems like the Chiefs are fine.
Yeah, I think that the Chiefs scored 27 points, beat the Vikings 27-20. Mahomes 31 of 41, 281, and 2 touchdowns. Not much in the running game. Kelsey 11 targets, 10 catches, 67 yards, and a score. And then you had Justin Watson, Rashee Rice, Justin Ross, Kadarius Toney, all with a bunch of like sort of poo-poo platter receiving stuff. I just don't think. I think the Chiefs at 4-1. I think that what the Chiefs. Here's my hot take on the Chiefs. The Chiefs are the new Patriots. They have this ensconced superstar, Hall of Fame, all-time quarterback on a reasonable contract that is team-friendly. They have one weapon, and for the Patriots, there's always like Wes Welker or Edelman, right? But it's for the Chiefs, it's Travis Kelce, who is just unstoppable. They have this like little cavalcade of interchangeable running backs who they can swap in and out. That do like Pacheco's aggressive and physical. Jarrett McKinnon, if they're trailing, can come back. They have a defense that's playing above its head, even though you don't really understand why the pieces work, but they kind of do. And they're stacking wins early and figuring things out as they move along. And at the end of the day, when all the dust clears, the Chiefs will be the 1 seed in the AFC. And they will win the Super Bowl or be hosting the AFC Championship game and maybe get really unlucky.
Is that your hot take?
I just think my hot take is the Chiefs are the new Patriots, and this is going to happen for the next 10 years.
Because you had the Jaguars being the number 1 seed.
I said it was a good bet.
Okay, I just want to clarify. That was your bold prediction.
Look, the Chiefs are 4-1.
Are you off the Jags, Brinson? Are you off the Jags?
No, I love the Jags. Chiefs are 4-1, and we're all like, man, the Chiefs. Are we worried about the Chiefs? It's like, no, I'm not worried about the Chiefs.
No, I'm just reading the question that Harry wrote down. So
I know, and I'm answering.
I don't think Breech is worried about the Patriots.
Harry's a good follow up here. Is like, do the Chiefs scare you?
Well, I was going to say this. Are you more concerned in quotation marks about the 4-1 Chiefs or the 5-0 Eagles long term?
All right, let's say the Bengals and Joe Burrow figure this thing out, get to the playoffs, and who do you not want to see on the other side, Breech?
Yeah, the Chiefs.
Okay,
you can handpick your opponent. You don't want to play the Chiefs.
Exactly. So the Chiefs still scare you, but they don't petrify you the way that they might have with Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce. They are like the Patriots so many different times under Belichick and with Tom Brady. They reimagined themselves as they went along. And you're like, oh, I guess this is finally it. They don't have the weapons. It's like, oh, no, that's Rashee Caldwell catching 15 catches in a playoff game. Like, that's what the Chiefs are.
So I'll ask again. Are we more concerned about the Chiefs in quotation marks or the Eagles right now?
I'm more concerned about the Eagles than the Chiefs.
Breech?
I'll say the Chiefs.
All right. I'll have the deciding vote. And
I'm not concerned, though. I'm not concerned. Just if I had to pick one of those 2 teams.
I'm not worried about the Eagles either, but yeah.
Yeah.
All right. What's next?
What was your vote, Wilson? Be the deciding vote, please.
I will cast that vote next week.
When are we doing a Super Bowl draft?
Have to come back for that.
Teaser.
I don't know. I might have to do it at the midway point because we missed the quarter poll. All right. Let's go.
You want to abandon the rundown completely and just do a Super Bowl draft? Like,
no.
2019 style?
We could do it Tuesday with Briscoe.
There you go.
That's a good call. Good call.
Let's get Briscoe in on it.
Yeah.
In the meantime, let's go to South Florida.
Ooh, I love South Florida.
So, Harry is a Dolphins fan, and he is bringing the high heat with this headline. Rookie running back, number 28 in your hearts, in your playbooks, number 1 in your heart, Devon Achane is your 2023 offensive rookie. Forget that. He's your offensive player of the year. Brinson, where are you at on that?
That was my hot take. Is he's not rookie of the year. He's the player. Like, this dude is unbelievable. Look at these numbers. And if you're watching on YouTube, youtube.com/@NFL on CBS. If you're not watching and you're listening on Spotify, we appreciate you. Give us a 5-star review. But for those listening, I'll point this out. The NFL rushing yard leaders, Devon Achane, ever since he changed his name from Chain to Chan, it really messed me up. 460 rushing yards. Chris McCaffrey, 459. Zach Moss, 445. Travis Etienne, 396. David Montgomery, 371. Now, the difference is, of these guys, here are their rushing totals. Montgomery, 80 rushing attempts totals. Montgomery, 88. ETN 95, Zach Moss 89, CMC 80, Achane 38. He's averaging 13.8 yards per rushing attempt, or at least he was earlier during that game. This Miami Dolphins team is nothing but speed. They are a 1980s like drug running speedboat. And that should be their mascot. This team is the fastest team I've ever seen assembled in the modern NFL. Like even more than the Tyreek Hill Chiefs, every single skill position guy, Mostert, Tyreek Hill, Achane, Waddle, even Tua's pretty fast. This is the fastest team I've ever seen, Breech.
Could you even imagine, Brinson, announcer looking into the tunnel and be like, oh, here comes the Dolphins mascot, a drug running speedboat? That would be insane. I don't hate it though. I like the idea.
What if instead of a dolphin head, it's like a speedboat?
Even better. But to your point, I did the math real quick for you. And after this game, Achane is now averaging 12.1 yards per carry, which is an absolutely absurd number in the NFL. I don't think Brinson, Wilson, or I could average that if we were playing in a game against toddlers. That is how ridiculous that number is. And so what he's done, you just don't see especially rookie running backs kind of take the NFL by storm. And so I don't think it is that crazy to look at him as the early favorite for not just offensive rookie of the year, but offensive player of the year. The one thing about this game is that the Dolphins, I think one of the worries is always, well, what if Tua plays one of these bad games? Well, he had his first kind of shaky game. They still won by 2 touchdowns, and it wasn't even close. So their defense played well. Their defense didn't give up a single touchdown. The only score came on that 102-yard pick six that the Giants have. So
the longest score of the season so far, number one. Number two, it was the first touchdown, the first turnover that the Giants had gotten all season. And the other thing is, Tua threw 2 picks. They had a fumble. I think Achane or Mostert fumbled. I think it was Achane fumbled. So they had 3 turnovers and still lost. Daniel Jones got hurt. We talked to Achane. I asked him at the combine. I said, have you ever gotten caught when you were 7 or 8 years old? He goes, I don't even know what it's like to get caught from behind. I've never in my life experienced anyone running me down. As producer Harry notes here, if you're listening, puts up a tweet from Info Research, Devon Achane has more touchdowns, 7, in his first 4 career games than any player in the Super Bowl era. Shout out to Mike McDaniel for making that happen.
Just to be clear, I'm not making fun of you. I'm struggling with this so badly. Going from Achane to Achane.
Achane.
But it's a hard. It's one, that's a hard thing to get my head around. 2, you mentioned being walked down. Did you hear that Achane went up to Tyreek Hill after he got walked down on that? He was on the right side of the formation, catches a quick ball, darts up the middle, and he's diving, go left. He gets walked down, and Davon comes up to him. He's like, "You got caught? What are you, slow?" And then Tyreek, after the game, actually revealed that Achane is the 3rd fastest player on the team, behind Tyreek Hill and, quote, a white boy or a white guy. I don't remember how Tyreek said it, who's on their practice squad. I don't know who he is, but Tyreek says that he's the 2nd fastest guy on the Dolphins, between Tyreek 1, random white guy on practice squad 2. Producer Harry, what's his name?
Producer Harry doesn't know. I'll tell you what, Achane is going to be 4th because number 3 on the list now, Breech, Chase Claypool. All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk about my favorite Wilson, Zach Wilson. Right after this.
Freddie! Surprise!
Dad!
What's going on with your son?
Wish I knew. He's got a girlfriend I've never even heard of. When I told him I wanted to spend more time with him, he said no.
It's just not a good time.
Have you considered that he hates you?
Don't sit there! It was our Christian Lacroix pillows.
So we can't sit on the couch.
Not in jeans.
All right, boys, down the home stretch here. Breech, I've always said it, you're the Nathaniel Hackett of this podcast. How does it feel to get the big win today, get the game ball after the game? And what in the world was Sean Payton thinking back in July when he was flapping his gums about Nathaniel Hackett sucking and the offseason Super Bowl champs being the New York Jets?
Well, first of all, it's quite the compliment. I got to be the offensive coordinator for the NFL MVP a few years. And now I got to get revenge on Sean Payton. I'm just kidding. That wasn't nice calling me Nathaniel Hackett this podcast. But you know what? Nathaniel Hackett has to be loving life right now because what Sean Payton said in July didn't make any sense. You never hear a head coach railroad somebody else in the coaching profession like Payton did. And so I'm sure Hackett, he was dabbing all his teammates after this game. He was clearly thrilled.
Got a game ball.
They won, got a game ball. But you know what? Hackett finally did the smart thing. He said, I'm not even going to trust Zach Wilson. I'm just going to let Breece Hall do everything. And that's essentially what happened in this game. Breece Hall with 177 yards and a touchdown. And look, that's how the Jets have to win games. It is you play defense, you give the ball to Breece Hall, and then you pray that Zach Wilson doesn't mess things up. And that is what they did today. And it's a recipe that could work. I don't think it will, but at this point, the Jets don't have any other choice.
Breech, when you said pray, I immediately went to Herm Edwards. In this case, you pray to win the game, and that's exactly what they have to do. So, Brinson, what's the best case scenario for this Jets team? I mean, obviously going to the playoffs. What's the best case scenario with Zach Wilson, who Harry described as turning into a pumpkin, which is appropriate given that it's almost Halloween?
But when you said pray, I went to MC Hammer because you got to pray. Just to pray.
Just gotta wear your parachute
pants. Pray.
Just to make it today.
One of us underrated.
Nah, the Hammer was
legit.
when Hammer
don't hurt him.
When Hammer and Vanilla Ice were the hottest things on planet Earth, that was what a time to be a small child. You're like, this is the peak of music in America, obviously. Hammer and Vanilla Ice were awesome.
We need to get Hammer on the Super Bowl halftime show.
The Jets ceiling, I think, is a really good question, Wilson, because I don't know that I don't know how high you can say it is.
Well, Brent, let me ask you this. How many points are they going to beat the Eagles by next week?
Negative 42. But coming out of the bye in week 7 after they lose to the Eagles at home, they have 4 games, 3 are on the road, but it's at Giants, which is not on the road because that's at home. The Chargers at home, at the Raiders, and at the Bills. If they lose to the Eagles and they fall to 2-4, can they go 2-2 and be 4-6 and lingering? It's like in the hunt. Can they be in the hunt after those 4 games? I feel like they can.
Yeah, but what does in the hunt mean? I'm trying to figure out what's the best case scenario for Zach Wilson, because next year it's going to be Aaron Rodgers' team.
I think the best case is 9-8 wild card surprise, and you lose in the first round.
All right, that sounds about right. What do you think about that, Breech?
Yeah, they went 7-10 with him last year, so I don't think
he's better. So there's
calling 9-8 as the best case is ridiculous. But worst case is 4-13.
And let's just mention briefly before we move on, Russ Wilson isn't necessarily the problem. I'm not sure Sean Payton is the answer to any of the questions being asked in Denver. So what are we doing with that whole operation?
I don't know what you do, because their biggest problem in this game felt like it was the defense. I mean, you're giving up 234 yards rushing. That's a huge problem. Their other big problem is they can't hold a halftime lead. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see the stat up here. The Broncos have lost 10 consecutive games that they were leading at the half, which is an NFL record. It was their own record. The previous record was 9 held by them. It is now 10 held by them. They were winning this game 13-8 at the half, and then just got their doors blown off in the second half. And the thing is that it feels like these games will come down to the wire sometimes, and then you see Russell Wilson make a dumb play in the fourth quarter, and you automatically want to blame him for the loss. In this case, it was losing a fumble that got recovered and returned for a touchdown. But
it feels like Sean Payton isn't actively not making the Broncos better. The dragging the Jets thing aside, you motivated the Jets. You literally motivated an Aaron Rodgers-less Jets team to play for Nathaniel Hackett, somebody that it doesn't appear that really anyone other than Aaron Rodgers likes. And Breech pointed out in week 1, he cuts his kick, trades Brandon McManus, and then brings in Will Lutz to kick for him. That mistake happens. You have the multiple special teams mistakes. And it's just the other thing too is this younger generation of the way that people respond to stuff on social media. Every single thing about Sean Payton and the Broncos is Drew Brees made this guy. That's every reply these days. And it feels a little bit like the stuff that happened when Belichick and Brady split, where it was like Belichick is washed because he doesn't have Brady anymore. But like, what's the argument for Sean Payton? Because he's one.
That's your guy. You tell me.
I mean, I think he's still a really good head coach. But buddy, this is going poorly. I mean,
the other thing, Breech, maybe Brinson, you mentioned the turnovers that have sort of plagued Russ. He had the drop kick fumble that was returned for 6 to end that game. And then he goes to the sideline and old Sean Payton's giving him the business. And Russ turned and said something. I don't know what he said.
It felt like he walked by him.
Well, he turned his head and said something as he walked by him. But my point is that it wasn't like he reacted, but Sean was certainly reactive and then had to go, say that he didn't want to talk about Nathaniel Hackett after the game. It got so bad that the Jets tweeted out the picture of Kevin James, and it says, when you lose to the quote unquote off-season champs. And then Sauce Gardner tweeted out, Jets Nation, let's ride, and put a horse head on the tweet. So
that the word got out in that organization was pile on as much as you want after that win.
Yeah.
No one's going to get in trouble. Do whatever. Social team go crazy. Players be mean on Twitter. Do whatever you want.
Somebody might get fired for not piling on enough for the social team. I mean, like the Jets. I mean, the Broncos season so far, they lost 16-17 to the Raiders at home in week 1. You lose 33-35 with that crazy Commanders comeback. The Dolphins drop a 70 burger on you. You have to storm back to beat the Bears on the road 31-28, and then you lose by double digits at home against the Jets. Like, this team could be like 4-1, but if they were, we would be calling they've lost these games by like.
They could be 4-1 if they were actually the San Francisco 49ers, because they would find a way to lose the game. But I'm
saying like they could be 3-2 or 4-1, like realistically, just because of the scores, and we would be like, this is the biggest fraudulent team on planet Earth. Like,
they would be more fraudulent at 3-2 and 4-1 than at any point last year for the Minnesota Vikings, who had a negative point differential.
There you go. All right, what's next?
Vikings offensively are doing well. Kirk Cousins isn't the problem, but that's not what we're talking about next. What we're talking about next, the AFC South, as I like to say from time to time, talking about other things, usually receivers and coverage, is wide ass open. Like, it is up for grabs. Brinson's team, the Jaguars, are crushing it in London, but they got to come back to the States. The Texans lost today, but I love CJ Stroud. Anthony Richardson's been hurt 3 times in 4 games. Got hurt again, left with a shoulder injury. It's an AC joint injury, I believe. So that doesn't seem to be a quick turnaround unless he's got the same guy, Mr. Miyagi, who fixed Joe Burrow's calf. So, Brinson, where are we on the AFC South? What are we going to make of it? What does it look like?
So I actually wrote about this in sort of the Sunday Pile. You can check it out on cbssports.com. If you click on it 11 bajillion times, because I want the clicks and I'm trying to catch Breech in traffic this month.
Yeah,
they tell me I'm nipping on his heels. 11 bajillion page views behind him. So I think here's where I'm at on the AFC South. The Jaguars are good, and they're going to be in the mix for one of the top 2 seeds maybe in the AFC. I love this.
Breach of the game.
This Breech. It's like, think about what this, if you're watching on youtube.com/@NFL and CBS, it's the picture of the man, I think, in a Jaguars,
the person. Yeah.
In this costume, which can best be described as a 3-piece suit on the blazer. So the blazer is Navy blazer standard with a Navy, bowler hat that he also has in conjunction with this outfit. There's a green teal and gold vest underneath, and then a leopard skin button-up shirt with a teal bow tie. There's a British flag, a Jaguars teal and gold captain patch, a Jaguars pen, 2 other pens. I assume one is another British flag, and then a leopard skin or Jaguar skin pocket square. This person is also wearing is it Jaguars mask or face paint?
That's face paint.
A full Jaguar.
All out. This person probably spent 8 hours while the Bills were trying to work off their jet lag. This guy was drawing.
I think there's also a leopard skin or a Jaguar skin ascot involved. There are some there's some yellow teal eyeglasses and some kitty cat like a little bow thing that goes on the kitty cat, like the kitty cat ears. and a bowler. Like, this is the most like, if you ran into this person in real life, you don't want them to know your name or your phone number or your address.
Jaguars, you can buy a Jaguars print ascot on Etsy for $25. Might get it and just wear it on the next podcast.
Anyway, the point being is this person, super fan, and the Jaguars, a legitimate team. The Colts, I think, are good, but I cannot get past Anthony Richardson having 3 significant injuries that cost him either 2 of them. The last 2, he left the game, he didn't come back. And the last one, the concussion, he missed the next week. The first one, they said he could come back in. All in design runs in 3 different weeks in the first 5 weeks of his career with a head coach in Shane Steichen who loves to run his quarterback. It's extremely concerning for Anthony Richardson's future in the NFL, short and long term. Otherwise, I kind of like the Colts, but the Gardner Minshew thing is kind of nice. The Titans, I don't know what the hell to think about the Titans. They either get blown out, they blow somebody out, or they win or lose a really, really, really close, weird 1-score game. And then the Texans, I think, are the sneaky team who could slide in as a wild card at like the 7 seed with the Jaguars winning the division, because they should have beat Atlanta and have mostly looked kind of stable throughout the year. I think D'Amico Ryans, if you get him above 8-1 or anything above 5-1, honestly, it's probably a pretty good look for Coach of the Year.
Yeah, that feels about right. It is. The Titans are the unpredictable team. The Texans are the dark horse. And then the Colts do they have a quarterback situation to survive the season? You hit the nail on the head. And then the Jags are the favorite because they're the team that was just in the playoffs last year.
Pretty good description of the AFC South, huh?
So, Breech, what would the Colts record be if they started Gardner Minshew the entire season?
Undefeated. They'd never lose.
Correct answer.
Could they get a 3rd-round pick for him if they were 5-0?
More than that now.
More than that now. Joke's on you guys.
The thing is, you would get a higher pick for Gardner Minshew than the Cowboys gave up for Trey Lance. That's the world we're living in.
Yeah. I also think that, like, at this point, here's a hot take for you in the Colts. Gardner Minshew is untradeable.
Well, yeah, yeah, that's not a hot take.
Okay. I'm just saying, like,
you get fired if you trade Gardner Minshew. That's the hot take.
Like Gardner Minshew is the only reason you're not just. I mean, because usually, like, you lose a quarterback like Richardson for 3 games and you're dead.
Yeah, he's won 2 games now. He won the Colts, the Ravens game in overtime, and obviously won this game.
And he's 0-0.
All right,
or
1-0 maybe.
Breech, you lived in San Francisco, Oakland area. Let me ask you this, and then we'll get out of here. Brock Purdy makes $800,000 this a year. Can you live off of $800,000 a year in the Bay Area?
No.
I would say you cannot. When I lived in the Bay, so Brock Purdy lives with a roommate. That's what he revealed on the Today Show this past week. When I lived in the Bay Area, I lived with 3 roommates. That is the kind of crap you deal with. Rent is so insanely high. Shout out to Jake, Chris, and Karen, who actually just got married. So congratulations. But yeah, you live. That's what you have to do to survive. And then you feel like, what are you supposed to do except move to someplace cheaper? But if you're an NFL player, you can't do that. Brock Purdy can't move to Phoenix and then shuttle to work every day on an airplane. So you got to do what you got to do.
He's also stuck playing California taxes. And did Karen get married, or did Karen marry Chris or Jake?
Oh, no, she got married. Chris and Jake are the other 2 roommates.
Okay.
All right.
Congratulations,
On
Karen.
a fun fact here.
Thank you for clarifying.
Eugene Cyril Smith is my guy, but I got a new guy.
Oh boy.
Coleridge Bernard Stroud IV. That's CJ's first name. Is awesome. All right, boys, that's
Bernard? Are we doing no MVPs?
Oh, we can do a Brinson VP. Since Breech's fun fact was the Bay Area. Mine was CJ's full name. What's your Brinson VP?
Based on what we'd.
Yeah,
I don't really have one.
Okay,
actually, you know what? I'll go.
Thanks for asking.
I got one. I got a Brinson MVP.
Brinson VP, not a Brinson.
Brinson VP. BVP. Desmond Ridder.
Yeah.
I like it.
He balled out, dude. He balled out. He had a great game at home. Shut everybody.
He never
up.
loses at home. You said that last week, and that held true. So
suck it, everyone who doubted my Falcons pick.
Okay. Duly noted. That is it. Congratulations to producer Harry for his Dolphins continuing to dominate.
And Karen for getting married.
Shout out to Karen. That's it. This edition of Sunday Night Super Friends is a wrap, but don't worry. We'll be back here Sunday night. In the meantime, you can check out all the Pick Six podcast all week long on YouTube and NFL on CBS or wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you, Brinson. Thank you, Breech. Thank you, Producer Harry. And we'll see you guys later.